the reason I made you list out, your top 3 fears or your worst case scenario is because, whether you're aware of this or not, it's what runs you, and it is something you have to sink into. It's something you really have to sink into. Let the sensations of those fears or worst case scenarios surface and then release them. Okay, whatever it is right now, your worst case scenario, the thing that scares you shitless, you got to think about it in detail and experience it and then release those sensations. Now, one trap, and this is an easy one to fall into, and this actually recently happened to a friend of a friend who found out about Transformation Mastery, and he was going through this really harsh breakup, and his fear, and this is like the worst case scenario for him, the one that just scared him in a shitless way, was I will never be able to experience this connection with another girl again. I'll never be able to find this type of love again. Most girls I meet, and I've met girls after her, it's fun, but it just doesn't turn me on the same way. I don't get that spark. I don't feel alive. And even before her, I never felt that either. It's kind of like your first love that's now lost. And for him, that ran him. And something that, he needs to do if he really wants to let go of this and be free from this is sink into that worst case scenario. What if that is true? And this is not something that's comfortable to do, and it gets very intense. What if it is true, hypothetically, that she was the only one and that you will never find that again? What's so bad about that? And shit will surface very fast. Okay? Now, when it surfaces, and this is the trap you can fall into, and this is why it's tough with something so intense like fear, is that it can get so intense that instead of releasing it, you just start numbing it or escaping it or doing whatever you can not to think about it because it gets so fucking intense. And that's what happened to him when it all surfaces. He was like just sitting at home alone doing this, and it got so intense. He's like, oh my God. And then just went on this like drinking binge, like this bender, like all night drinking. Okay, now he's back on point, he's releasing it, but like that first time he did it, it got so intense, he just couldn't help but escape. Okay, now the key is, if that happens once, whatever, or even a few times, sometimes you have to get used to it. Okay, you kind of build up the courage to release it, but it is a trap you can fall into when dealing with something so intense. Okay, so whatever comes up, and this is one thing to remind yourself of, dive into it and release it. Even if it gets really intense, try to dive into it and release it. Okay, that fear, even if it's like survival, life and death, is just an illusion. Okay, it's like you're looking for what's on the other side. And it can be so good at convincing you to just turn away, just drink it, just numb it. Don't. Keep sinking into it. And remember, you can handle whatever's there, whatever comes up. A breakup where it really hurts you and that hurt lingers, like you just can't let go of it, guess what? That's a fucking pain body attack. That's linked to past trauma. Because a breakup, even if you like really get along with the person, there's that love, that connection, it hurts, but it's not like something that runs you forever. It's sad, you're parting ways, but hey, there's opening for something new. Part of you knows, okay, I'm going to meet someone else in the future. It's not pleasant, but it's not something that just drags you down for months or fucking years. That is pointing towards past trauma, baby. We always tend to overblow those fears. Whether it's that fear of, let's just say being homeless, fear of being homeless, fear of not making money, fear of just being stuck, kind of sinking into it and releasing the sensations. Like that's how you make it permanent, but also realistically looking at the situation and realizing that if you're someone who's here watching this, able to afford having access to a computer or a program like this, chances are it's probably hard for you to get to that point of being homeless. Chances are. Now, maybe if something horrible happens that just poof, you get spiraled out of control, maybe. But similar to how we all have a ceiling for success, we all have a point where we just can't go beneath that. That's just like unacceptable. That's the point usually where you wake the fuck up. You can slack off as much as you want. You're just sitting at home, watching TV, eating shit, etc., etc. But then when you're almost out of money or shit really hits the fan, whatever, that lowest point for you is, you wake the fuck up. Okay, your comfort zone, if you will, is that range between the ceiling and the floor. And the same is like you will find a way back if you go above that ceiling. You will tend to find a way back if you go below this. Okay, no matter who you are, and and you'll be able to recreate a similar situation that you're in now. Even if you lose your job, guess what? This is now in your comfort zone, something you can do. You found this type of job that makes X amount. You'll be able to find something similar again. Okay, and this also really clicked for me because I almost went homeless a few times when I first moved to Los Angeles. People think I moved to Los Angeles and things were all peachy and just killing it, but no. There was a time where, a few times actually, where I was homeless. And there was a time where I was proactively going to be homeless. I was working this really shit job. It was at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, just making pennies, and it wasn't enough to even sustain this place that I rented on Craigslist, like this living room basically. And I was like, shit, every week I saw the money dropping. Every month I saw the money dropping. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to live here longer. And my plan was, I'm just going to move in my car. Fuck it. I'll keep my job, but hey, I'll move in my car. I'll, shave my hair off, and then I'll just go shower down by the beach or Venice Beach or something, some free shitty public shower, or get like some cheap gym membership and just shower there. And because I'll have shaved my hair off, like very short, like military buzz cut, I won't need to wash it that much, and I'll just sleep in my car. Whatever. No big deal. And that was the plan. And even consciously, I was like planning for it. I shaved the hair off and everything. And right when I was reaching like that low point, something kicked in, and I ended up selling my car, and with that money, getting a new place to rent that was cheaper. It's like something just kicks in. You find a way. Okay. And then there was another time too where, based on some decisions I made, I found myself jobless, homeless, with no money, just in the worst fucking case scenario. And even then, that's when like necessity kicks in. And I remember just calling everyone I knew, and then I eventually found a place to stay, and I built shit back up. It's that old who would bail you if you were in jail. We always underestimate our the resources we have when necessity kicks in. Whatever it is. And this was something that was reinforced by, who told me this story? This guy who teaches sales. He told me this story, and he actually tells this story, shares this story to make sales, and it's fucking on point. And what he said is, like, if he's selling a program and he knows that program, whoever buys the program will benefit from it. They always have excuses. There's always excuses, and it's your job to basically help them go through those excuses to get those benefits. And what he tells them is, hey, say the program is like $297. Say it's like whatever tier you're on. Say basic standard tier of transformation mastery, $297. The excuse is, man, $297 is a lot, And what he says is, hey, it depends how important this is for you. If you were in fucking jail right now, say you got arrested for who knows what, and the bail was $297. Find $297 today, or you spend the night in jail. If you don't find it tomorrow, you'll spend another night in jail. You're in jail until you get $297. Guess what? Necessity will fucking kick in, and you will call everyone. You will do whatever it takes to find the $297. You call friends, ask to borrow $10 here, $20 here. You call your family. You'd ask for a loan. You'd sell shit. You would find a way. And just kind of reflecting on that, like, I heard it, and I was like, oh my God, so true. Whatever your excuse is, like, oh, it's too expensive. If it was, necessary for you to find that money, you would. So that'll kick in too. The closer you get to that floor, let's just say. So just something to think about in terms of being, homeless or losing your job, et cetera, et cetera. There's a difference between thinking about the situation and how you would find a way versus being in the situation and finding a way. Huge. If you're picturing right now the worst case scenario, like, man, if I was homeless and necessity did kick in, let me think of what I would do. That might help, but it's when you are fucking homeless. Not thinking about homeless, are homeless. Now shit really kicks in, and possibilities and options and things you could be doing that you could never even conceive of until you are homeless kick in. Okay. And then it's really trusting your faculties. Like, you'll find a way back. You go beneath that floor, you find a way back. The more you experience the world, the less you fear. The more you experience the world, the less you fear, because the more, whatever you consider realistic, the more realistic you become. The more your perspective changes. If you're someone who doesn't experience the world, if you're someone who's very isolated, you can project a lot onto the unknown. The more becomes known to you, the less you fear. Okay? And this is something that, no matter who you are, go out there and experience the fucking world. Go out there and grow your perspective on things, because so much of fear is unrealistic. Do a 30-day no news, no media cleanse. For the next 30 days, for the next month, no news. Don't read the fucking news. Don't watch the news. Don't read the news. No news for 30 days. And what you'll see is, just by doing that, okay, yeah, it doesn't get to the cause, but just by doing that, that state of fear that you're in will diminish drastically. It's absolutely insane how the news conditions you to be afraid all the time. Just go on any news site, you're going to see all these horrible things happening, and it's going to tell you, be afraid of this and this and this and this, and you live your life fucking scared shitless. Okay, for me personally, I've not read or watched the news in probably, over 10 fucking years. Over 10 years. And you survive. At first you're like, how will I ever survive without knowing whatever's happening? If there's something that's huge, You don't have to watch the news to know. People, it'll enter your reality. You'll hear someone talk about it. You'll hear a lot of people talk about it. Your friends will talk about it. You'll still find out about the big stuff that you should maybe know of. But the rest is complete bullshit that does not matter. Okay, it does not matter, and just conditions you to always focus on the scary shit. And then you're walking through life focusing on the scary shit. Okay, I know people, just based on, for example, and this is completely horrible, but all of the recent, say, attacks, horrible, but they're walking around on a day-to-day basis scared that it may happen at any second to them. Now, who knows? It fucking could. But if you spend your life every second of the day, they won't even go outside to a restaurant. They'll use that Postmates app where you just get the food to come to you. I know people like that. They'd rather have the food come to them because they're too afraid to go to a fucking restaurant because they've been reading so much in the news about this horrible stuff that's happening. Okay, now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, but you can't be living your life that way. And this is big in terms of you even taking protective measures. You can take those same protective measures out of love versus out of fear. And this is another reason we really hang on to fear. We think that if we stop being afraid, we'll stop being careful. We will stop protecting ourselves. But no, you can, the same as you can take action out of desperation or inspiration, you can take protective measures, you can be safe out of love for yourself versus out of fear. Something that everyone should reflect on, and a book that I recommend reading is The Shortness of Life by Seneca, where he just really makes you think of death. It's reflect on death. Because there's one thing that is guaranteed for all of us, and it sounds very morbid and very just dark to say, but it's fucking true. We are all going to die. Guaranteed. None of us get out of here alive. We're all going to die. Accepting it, death will happen, frees you of that worry and frees you of the constant struggle to survive. When you accept, I'm not going to survive, now you're free. And now it opens you up to the present moment. Your experience of the present moment changes. And that does not mean, once more, to stop taking protective measures. For example, man, I'm going to die anyway, so why should I worry about my health? No, it doesn't take away from the thing. You can be healthy out of love. You can be healthy to experience the present moment even more intensely, let's just say. But it now frees you from being so preoccupied with the future and fighting against what is natural. We're all going to die. Welcome to life. I fear uncomfortable situations which are outside my comfort zone. I feel this fear creates a huge resistance towards taking action out of my comfort zone. Okay, so I like this one too. Another thing that we're conditioned to is to fear, to avoid fear, and to design our lives in a way where we never experience fear. Fear is really labeled as the enemy. And I talk about this in the content video as well. And you cannot buy into this. You should fall in love with fear. Why? Because as we discussed, what's underneath fear, if you really get to the root of it all, authenticity. Fear is your guide. Fear is your compass towards those things that you label as unacceptable and that you must re-own. So instead of designing a life where you run away from fear, design a life where you dive into fear, where you sink into fear. Instead of trying to avoid triggers, go and seek out triggers. This is why you do the social anxiety challenges. You want to seek triggers. You want to be afraid. You want to go where it's not very comfortable. And don't try to shelter yourself. And people are being sheltered more and more, by the way. And this is fucking scary to think about. It's fear. It's scary to think about, but it's true. We're more and more conditioned now to avoid uncomfortable situations. If you think about the whole, like say in the colleges, especially here in America, there's the whole trigger warning. There's the whole safe space. And just think trigger warning. Okay, people will say this, or you'll read it, or it'll be announced before being exposed to an idea or a certain piece of content. Trigger warning, meaning when you watch this, you may be triggered. And it's supposed to basically warn you, but also get people to not watch it, to avoid being triggered. And it's the worst message you could send to someone. Oh, just put trigger warning everywhere so I never have to be triggered. No, you want to be triggered. Avoiding being triggered is keeping that shit down there. Triggers are your fucking friend, but we're conditioning ourselves to stay further and further away from it. Avoid being triggered, or create a safe space where I'll never be triggered, where I'll never be afraid, I'll be safe all the time, where I'll never experience conflict, disagreement. It's like surrounded by yes men. That's what happens. These little safe spaces, you never fucking grow, you're never challenged, you're coddled, and you're surrounded by yes men that reinforce whatever you believe in. And when you're surrounded by only yes men, no matter who you are, you will always get cheered off the cliff, no matter who you are. It's the scariest thing. Like, that's the silent killer, being surrounded by yes men. But, that's what's kind of being imposed on us here, and it's taking us further and further away from authenticity. Okay? Don't go into a safe space. You should not need a safe space. Enjoy the challenge. Enjoy being triggered. Don't try to avoid triggers. Go into them. And you'll see on the other side, there's authenticity. Okay? And with also, one last thing with the whole safe space culture, it's, it's labeling pretty much even smaller things as being scary or as being horrible. So in terms of unrealistic fears, pretty much anything will make you afraid. Anything will trigger you. So where I feel the most safe and comfortable is actually the most dangerous. Well, now let's add the nuance layer. Technically, the more you re-own, and this is big, the safer you feel everywhere. And I guess it depends, like, however you label safe and comfortable. And, oh, I love this point. Safe and comfortable you think is safe and comfortable now is not. If you put yourself in a situation, a safe space, for example, to avoid being triggered or to avoid discomfort, you're not really comfortable because that fear is still there. And if you're honest with yourself and you're like, am I really comfortable right now? No. There's a lot of fear, a lot of resistance, for example, as you said before, like following your goals, putting yourself out there, you just hold back. There's a lot of that internal resistance and fear. So you're not really safe and comfortable. Being safe and comfortable is feeling at ease everywhere. That's the true being safe and comfortable. And that's what happens when you re-own all of those unacceptable things. The things that fear points you towards and helps you become aware of in order to let go of. What about the fear of physical threat? You can really die. Yep, that can happen. Now, fortunately, in terms of being realistic or not, and this depends on where you live in your situation, but in most places, there are certain rules in place, and let's just say for it to reach that point where there's physical threat, a lot has to happen. Like you have a lot of leeway before that happens. So realistic, yes, but we tend to overblow it. If you're walking out and you're like, oh man, I'm going to get attacked, most likely that's not going to happen. Okay. And, a stepping stone there to help is put yourself out there more. As I said, the more you experience the world, the less you fear. For me, going out and say learning about success with women, in the beginning, I was like, oh man, if I go out and talk to a girl and just say hi, I'm going to get beat up, because I never experienced going out and talking to girls. So I would project all those things onto the unknown. And then the more I experienced it, the more I realized nothing happened, and personally, I've been like going out and meeting new people, putting myself out there for, over 10 years now. And I've never been in a fight. I've never been physically attacked. Now, knock on wood, next webinar, you'll see me with a black eye and shit. But no, I've never been in a physical, confrontation. Now, I'm also smart about my surroundings. I'm very socially aware, but you realize if you played smart, you don't act in a way that's completely unaligned with social norms, you're fine. Okay. Now, is there still the 0.01% fluke chance that something will happen? Yes. It's possible that you go out and you say hi to someone, for example, and someone runs up behind you and just just punches you in the back of the head or smash something on your head out of the blue. Could totally happen. I've seen this actually happen in Australia. There was in Brisbane, Australia, this place called the Valley. And throughout one night going out there was like 9 brawls. Just not just one-on-one, like a bunch of guys against a bunch of other guys. It was insane. And it was over nothing. Like you could be walking in a bar and just like brush shoulders with a guy. Bang! Fight break out. Now, as I said, similar to kind of thinking about, okay, the fear of death, it's going to happen. That could happen. But if you obsess about that happening, like say again, the whole 10 years of me going out and putting myself out there, if I was like, man, it's going to happen, that would have just colored and poisoned those 10 fucking years. If it does happen, it happens. There's nothing you can really do about it if you're smart about it. If you take the protective actions necessary, that's really all you can do in terms of what's in your control. And then just think about the 2 options. Either you fear it for so long and it happens. Okay, well, it still happened, but you feared it and it poisoned your experience up until that time anyway. Or you could just not fear it, and then if it happens, okay, it sucks, it happened, but your entire time leading up to it was amazing. Okay? Same with death, which is for sure going to happen. You can either fear it and, oh my God, I'm going to die, and have that poison your experience of life and then die. Or you can accept it and be like, okay, I'm going to die, and then just let's enjoy my time here while I'm here, and now you're free. And now your experience up until that point is amazing. If I look back at those over 10 years of going out and putting myself out there, meeting new people, interacting with a lot of women, having amazing experiences, if you came up to me at the beginning of my journey and you told me, okay, here's the deal. You're going to have these 10 years of amazing experiences. Life-changing experiences, epic adventures and stories that you'll, have with you for the rest of your life. You can have all of that, 10 years of that. But in exchange, someone has to beat you up once. I would have been like, beat the shit out of me right now. Just do it. Totally worth it. So a few things to keep in mind with fear of conflict. Fear of becoming mega successful and unrelatable. I'll actually link this to fear of authenticity. And I'll talk a little bit about my journey / story. And because this is really common, it's like that fear of, I remember when I started out, say with Success with Women, you have, I had a few friends, not many, but a few, but I had my little group of people I hung out with. I was this person in that group, that role. I had my family, and that was it. And everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to be more confident. But when you do, you disrupt those relationships because everyone's used to you being that. This is you. This is where you stand in the group. This is the role that you play. And if you change, now there's chaos. It disrupts things. If you're with a group of friends and you're like the funny guy, it's not you start moving towards becoming the successful guy. They're like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? You're the funny guy. Say the funny guy. If you're like the bottom guy where they're like, they don't really care if you're there or not, and you change, like, wait a minute, what are you doing? We had a good thing going. Everyone knows their place. Stay in your place. Don't disrupt this. So it creates chaos. And not only that, but when you start working on, say, yourself, it also shines a spotlight on, perhaps some of their shortcomings. If you hang out and all your friends are, say, not very healthy, and you start becoming healthy, it shines that spotlight. Like, every time they see you being healthy, it's showing them how unhealthy they are. And it's a lot more comfortable being around people who are also unhealthy. Hey, let's all be unhealthy together and, live in our little echo chamber, and none of us feel bad. Okay, so there will be resistance to you changing, and you'll sense yourself relating perhaps a little bit less with the people you relate to now. And there is that fear, like, hey, if I become successful, although I really want it, these people won't be able to relate to me, and I won't be able to relate to them anymore either. And that is, realistically possible. And if I look back at my journey when I started out, a lot of my friends then, guess what? They're not my friends anymore. You think that because you're friends with someone, you must be friends with them always. But no, if suddenly you start, working on yourself and they don't relate, it's not just a one-way street where they don't relate to you. You also stop relating to them. And it's kind of being real here, like, okay, this is a lose-lose for both of us. No hard feelings. I get where you're coming from. I wish you the best. I hope the same for me. Or only hang out with them in different situations where you still relate. And that's what I do, still with some friends from way back in the day. I have a friend with whom I did a lot of music in Switzerland. And he was not into working on being more confident or success with women, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my journey. That was my calling. And what I did is, we still hang out to this day, but I'll never, for example, go out to a bar or a nightclub or anywhere where interacting with women comes at play. We'll hang out, we'll go for lunch. We'll hang out, we'll play music together. In those situations, we still relate. So you don't have to relate to your friends all the time. And then, and this, you'll kind of realize, like, along the journey, no matter who you are, whether you're here with your friends, say you move up and you become unrelatable to them, now you're relatable to new people. And then you're relatable to newer people. So you will always be relatable to somebody. It just might not be the people you relate to now entirely, but you might still relate to them, in different situations. So that fear of being mega successful, you're going to find people you relate to then as well. And you have to trust in that, and kind of reflecting back on your journey in life up until now helps cement that. Look at your friends when you were a kid. Look at your friends in high school. Look at your friends in college. Look at your friends now. You will always find people to relate to, and you have to trust in that. And you should not want someone who's not on that same journey as you to relate to you either. And this, let it sink in. If your friend, for example, is not ready to take that same journey of working on themselves as you, you should not want them to relate to you, because that would be compromising their journey or compromising where they're at. Stop chasing people you're not meant to be with. Here you were meant to be with them, that's fine. But if you go here and they don't want to go there, you're asking them, like, fake it, compromise your calling right now. Maybe they'll go there later, but right now you're like, compromise it. The only way for you to still relate is either they compromise it or you compromise. So let them go. Everyone's on their own journey. Respect that. And then find people who are on that same journey as you. There will always be people on the same journey as you. That's the people you're after. And this also happens, by the way, not just friendships, but in relationships. And this is why it can be at times difficult to maybe find a partner long term if you're in this whole personal development world, because you're working on yourself. You're realizing more and more of who you are. And you're on this journey. But not everyone in the world is on this personal development journey. So you'll meet someone who's, say, okay, here you relate to each other, but because you're committed to this journey, they might not be. And if not, eventually the unrelatability kicks in. And then you find someone new, and then perhaps eventually the unrelatability kicks in until you find someone who's just as committed on the same journey as you. Okay. And in terms of my experience too, the more recent one where I really had to reflect back on the past and like take what I just shared with you in once more, was going through the media scandal, and after the media scandal, changing directions a bit with my teachings. I switched from 100% success with women to more general personal development advice that eventually led to transformation mastery. Now, here we are 2.5 years later. It's like the videos are strong, the content is strong, the product is strong. Like this program has topped all of my dating programs. Like this is the most successful, impactful program I created. It's easy to look back and be like, oh man, that was a really good move. But at the time when I did that transition, there was a lot of unknown. It's like my comfort zone back then, and the people who really related with my teachings were 100% success with women. And there was that fear, like, okay, here I am doing, kind of shifting things into personal development. There's the new Julian Himself channel that I created. There was a lot of resistance, a lot of people who followed me who suddenly just didn't relate, and who got pissed and who were angry at me for changing directions. There would be comments every fucking day on every video saying, that I'm a pussy, that I bitched out, that I'm like Michael Jordan playing baseball, that I've lost it, that I'm finished, just nonstop. Like that was the common theme. Most comments hated it. Okay, and it's literally like, that's my clique before, now I'm changing. Now I'm on a new journey. This is the new path. Chaos. And suddenly it's like, wait a minute, you're this person. What are you doing? And there was so much resistance. And I mean, there was that fear where it's like, well, I may lose a huge chunk of, my audience, a huge chunk of the people that supported me up until now. And you got to remind yourself, it's like, well, maybe they might, maybe I will. And, if that's the case, then that's the case. But I also trusted that I will find new people who relate to me. And not just that, but with the whole chaos thing too, give someone enough time and you'll be surprised how they'll still relate to you. And that's what I noticed. Like, did I lose a chunk? Yes. And usually it's people who are kind of on the fringe side, who are just extreme success with women only. Other people, and this is probably the bigger chunk, were upset. But then you give them enough time, they kind of get used to the new relationship, and you can actually help them kind of embark on that journey too, or be open to something new. And that's what happened. And then of course I keep finding new like more people who relate on this journey, on this path. If you're not being authentic, no matter what you get externally, it's never worth it. It's never ever worth it. And even making that transition too with the new channel, and I'd get very few views in the beginning, making those videos and getting those few views because it was authentic and coming from me being true to myself and where my journey was taking me, was a million times more fulfilling than maybe getting more views on something that wasn't as much my calling anymore. What if you can't relate to your family? This applies to your family as well. My family, and I said this maybe in a previous webinar, but with my family, when I moved to Los Angeles, there was tons of resistance, tons. It created so much chaos, but once someone senses that this is your true calling, they see that it's authentic to you, and give them enough time to readjust, because it does create chaos. Not always, but you'll be surprised how, you guys come back together later on. Like right now with my family, I'm closer than ever. Closer than if I had, say, not moved to Los Angeles, because that's when it happened. Like me quitting university, moving to Los Angeles. If I didn't do that, you would think, oh man, then you would relate to them, but that'd be me compromising myself. And I'd be way more unhappy, unfulfilled, and it would probably poison the relationship we have. When there is that authentic calling, you have to do it. Even if it creates some chaos temporarily or even long term, you have to do it. And even if you never truly connect back again, they'll know, like a part of them will know that it's you doing what's authentic to you, and it's something that you have to do. And they'll still love you and respect you for it, even if you never reconnect. Do you think it's realistic to be able to live your life completely fearless? Depends what type of fear you're talking about. As I mentioned in the content video, the emotion of fear is necessary, and you don't want to stop living that. Experiencing the emotion of fear is fucking good. As I said, you wouldn't be watching this webinar without it. You'd be fucking dead. If you didn't experience the emotion of fear, you'd be dead by now. You wouldn't survive. You need the emotion of fear to keep you alive. The state of fear, however, which is what you hang on to, versus the emotion where you experience it, you get the data, you're like, oh shit, better not go there, better not do that, better be careful here. That's what keeps you alive. It's temporary. You experience it, you act accordingly, you let it go, you live your life when the threat is gone. We hang on to it and we live our lives in this state of fear. Is it possible to let go of the state? Yes. Is it possible to let go of a lot of unrealistic fear? For example, based on unrealistic expectations, based on the media that conditions you, or based on past traumas? Yes. Don't buy into the hype of not being triggered, or being triggered is bad, or chaos is bad. That's what frees you. That's what fucking frees you. And with being triggered as well, although you experience the same like life and death sensations, like your survival instinct kicks in, because that's when that original traumatic experience was repressed, what you realize is that it's never ever as bad as you think. Like, you think it's life or death, but don't buy into that bluff. Like, it's a bluff. When you're being triggered and you think you're gonna fucking die, it's life and death, and you experience those sensations, it's a fucking bluff. Can you explain how to dive into the resistance? I feel scared when I do the deep subconscious release, and I feel myself shutting down. Time. Just keep doing it. This is also why we had the steps of you not just grounding yourself at the base of your spine and your body, but grounding yourself with the visualization of roots coming out of your feet. All of that is supposed to help you communicate to your subconscious that it's okay, it's safe to let all of this up. You're not going to die. You can handle it. But even then, sometimes it takes fucking time. Like, there are some things where, you might see some people having intense, sensations arise, and you're like, fuck, why am I not experiencing that? But for me, like, some of the things that were the most intense to release took fucking weeks of just nothing. I kid you not, weeks. Sitting there doing it, and like nothing comes up, little bit comes up, but I just stick to the fucking process. And then eventually, like, a little bit, and it fucking hits you. And when it hits you, it's like, you're like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? So just keep at it. The whole fear of rejection is built on that split, where there's the front you put on, and then the unacceptable side of you. With public speaking, you're, for that front to stay alive, or your ego to stay alive, if you will, you constantly need external, feedback, approval, validation to keep reinforcing it. And there's always that fear of, someone devalidating it, deflating it, or, seeing through you, seeing some of the unacceptable parts of you. With public speaking, the reason it's so fucking scary is because you're not just getting one person's validation or disapproval, approval, disapproval, you're getting a lot of people's approval, disapproval. So your ego's, or that front, if you will, is, at massive risk. Because if suddenly you fuck up, you get a lot of disapproval at the same time. And it takes a really strong fucking hit. So that's why you fear it. This is how, again, like, that state of fear colors our experience. Take this situation. Say it's Friday, and you're at work, and it's the end of the day, and your boss comes up to you, and your boss is like, hey, look, it's Friday, go home, enjoy the weekend, but I need to talk to you first thing Monday morning. It's really important. And that's your end of the day Friday. You don't know what the fuck your boss is going to talk to you, what's so urgent, what's important, and you have 2 days to wait. Your mind's going to go to work. Your mind's going to be like, oh my God, what the fuck does my boss want to say to me? Oh my God, am I going to get fired? Holy shit, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And not once, I can guarantee you, are you going to be thinking about, maybe it's good news. All the past trauma, all the fear will just become pouring out. And then there's doubt. And because you can't figure out the answer, there's no way for you to fucking know the answer. You beat yourself up for not knowing the answer. And then you beat yourself up for beating yourself up. And it's just fucking hell. And that tends to happen when we think of the future as well. So the more you release the past traumas, the better. the more you realize, like, hey, there's no way you can know. Letting go of the need to always know the right answer, letting go of the need to always know the answer, being okay with the unknown, that helps. And also making a list of things you look forward to. What do you look forward to? Try to maybe rebalance the future. Instead of just viewing it as fearful, what are some things you look forward to in the future? Even little things, just write it out. And then remind yourself too, you can always deal with the present moment. Always. Here looking back at your life, you're alive right now. You always found a way. You're here. Take that in. If suddenly, and I'm sure right now too, like fucking 5-10 years ago, there were times you're like, how am I going to deal another 5-10 years? Yet here you are. You always find a way. Fear of never having a girlfriend, a fear of being alone. Dive into it. What's so bad about being alone? What if that's true? What if you never find a girlfriend? Sink into it, release it. When was a previous time you experienced that? Sink into it, release it. When was maybe the first time you experienced that? Sink into it, release it. Because even if you get a girlfriend from this place where you fear not having a girlfriend, that fear is not going to go anywhere. In reality, you might even be even more afraid if you get a girlfriend. Why? Because if you get her out of fear, now you fear losing her. You know what? I'll give you a few more being triggered challenges, let's just say. So I'll give you 3, okay? The first one is spend one day, like go out in public one day, in a way where you're just dressed uncool and you just don't look cool. A lot of us have a lot of attachment to the way we look physically, the way we dress, the way we're perceived by others. If you're someone who's insecure about their hair, go out with mess up your fucking hair. If you're insecure about your clothes, just wear the shittiest clothes you have. Whatever you're afraid of, imagine you were coaching you, like you had you as a client, and you had to dress that you in a way that would make that you scared shitless and super uncomfortable to go outside in public looking that way. Do that to yourself and then go out in public and see what kicks in. And then, of course, dive into it and release it. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is go out in public and for about a minute, just sing a song or your favorite song as loud as you can. There's often a lot of resistance around singing. It's labeled as something that's very personal to us, more so than talking. So many of us, we have this blockage when it comes to singing. So go out and fucking sing in public. That's number 2. And number 3, and this is one of the best ways to get triggered, spend an entire day with your family. And not just family in general, but with someone in your family you can't spend a lot of time with because you get triggered very fucking fast. That's the third mission. Okay? And if you want to get triggered, just go hang out with your family. You're like, of course I love my family. You see them, and then immediately, the little things they do, boom, triggers you. Where you can't even have a conversation until this topic comes up, boom, and it triggers you. Spend a day with that person in your family. How do I handle the fear of changing yourself and for becoming a better person? I feel the internal blocks during some of the releases and can't go further. Just keep going. With these internal blocks, by the way, during releases, don't just fucking give up. And don't think you're doing something wrong or there's something you're missing. Just keep doing it. The journey here is you just sink into it more and more and more and more and more. And the example I love to give is my friend who did a lot of the camera work during the Transformation Mastery live events. He did that. During the first tour where we started doing Transformation Mastery, sometimes he'd sit in the room and the cameras would be running and he would do the release there as well. And then we do them as we travel. And he, for the longest time, fucking weeks, was not able to bring his awareness to the base of his spine. Just fucking wasn't able to. He would bring his awareness down, it would stop here in his chest. Every fucking time. And then a little bit further. At first it was in the neck. He just couldn't get past the neck and he felt a lot of choking sensations. Then down, then finally base of the spine. because there's like a lot of layers of resistance he has to go through. And that took fucking weeks. So just keep at it. How do you dive into a fear in public and release it if, say, you trigger yourself? Well, I mean, technically, you could just sit down on a bench out in the street and do it. But what I would do is just go home right after. You know, it's like those sensations are closer to your awareness now. And even if it takes like a few hours for you to get home and get into, say, a safer environment, just rethink of that situation. Replay it. And because it's very recent, once more, it's like it'll still be past, you know, whatever was triggered, passed through layers of resistance, and it's still up there, closer to your awareness. You can easily just catch it and then sink into it. But that's what I do, you know, or sometimes you accidentally get triggered and there's nothing you can do about it. Just whenever you're triggered, breathe into it. In the present moment, I like to just bring my awareness to the base of my spine and just take some deep breaths. And then when I get home or whenever I have time, I know that that is a situation that triggered me. You can even take a note on your phone, you know, triggered during this situation. And then when you get home and when you have time to really dive into it, become aware of that situation, and then sink into the associated sensations. Whatever your fear is, what's so bad about it? Dive into it. Because remember, the fear you experience is that compass and guide towards something that you've disowned. So whatever you fear, it's not about like, how do I get rid of this fear? It's what if that fear came, like what is the worst case scenario and what if that happened? What does that trigger inside of you? You know, I fear being rejected. What if you do get rejected? Sink into that. What if everyone rejects you? What comes up? Okay. What if, you know, I fear people seeing through me. What if that happens? What comes up? I fear failing. Okay, what if that happens? What if you do fail? Dive into it. As soon as like you even think like about that scary thing, it's like, no, not that. Or you'll think of a more subtle fear, but not the one that really fucking scares you. That's why I keep saying like the worst case scenario. And we all have it. You know, there's the worst case scenario is usually something that we tend to think about on a day-to-day basis. You know, like the thing that really fucking worries you. The thing that's just hanging over your head every day, whatever that is. You know, we all have that fear. The one you think of at least once a day. The worst case scenario, the horrifying scenario. The scenario where it's like, that would ruin you. That's what you dive into. The scenario that would fucking ruin you. What is it? Dive into it and release it. If you're diving into, for example, past trauma, when the reason the trauma was repressed there is because that experience was pure fucking horror. However, if you don't allow yourself to experience those sensations now to let go of them, it'll keep running you. You have to experience the sensations of horror. You can do as many fucking releasing cycles as you fucking want, by the way. You know, like take your time with this. Like there's some releases, and that's why I'm saying don't be afraid to pause this. There's some releases where it gets so intense, like I'll do the 3, okay, let it take over, let it pass through, let it out. And there's still so much more there. I need to spend like 10, 15 fucking minutes just experiencing it, letting it take over, experiencing it, letting it take over. So take your time. Your mind will tell you the opposite. There'll be layers of resistance saying, no, you can't, you'll die if you do. No. Experience it.